गणानां त्वा गणपतिं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणस्पदान् शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् ॐ श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। ॐ वृषभं च शनीनां विश्वरूपमदाभ्यं बृहस्पतिं वरेण्यम् ॐ तद्विष्णो परमं पदं तदा पश्यन्ति सूरयः दिवीवचक्षुराततम् ॐ ऐं ह्रीं श्रीं क्लीं हसौः जगत्पतिभ्यै नमः। Everybody say after me Hare Rama Krishna 3 times. Om Hare Rama Krishna, Hare Rama Krishna, Hare Rama Krishna. Yesterday was the full moon day. We did Satyanarayana Vratam at my house. So we will do a small mantram for Satyanarayana, Lord Satyanarayana also. He is a form of Narayana and he is the manifestation of truth basically. He is the embodiment of truth. There are 7 lokas. We will talk about lokas later. But the highest loka is Satya Loka and he is the Lord of that loka. And if you are truthful basically, he lives within you as your truthfulness. So he is truth personified. So the small mantra is Om Namo Bhagavate Satya Devaya. So we'll do it 11 times. Om Namo Bhagavate Satya Devaya. 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 It's very auspicious to pray to Satyanarayana on full moon night. So there is a procedure, a ritual called Satyanarayana Vratam, and if you are not in a position to perform that, if you at least do this particular mantra and visualize Lord Satyanarayana, the personification of truth, and take a vow to be truthful, it will be very auspicious. You will have the blessings of Satyanarayana. Okay, we will continue our discussion. There was a homework, if you remember. Who did the homework? Okay, why don't you do one thing? Send those events to the class. Email all those events to the class. And by next class, you will all try to justify those events. So try to do that homework. And if you cannot do that, then we will take it up in the next class and do it in the class. But try to do the homework. Yes, what is the question?
Vedic astrology is the only one who could explain the differences between two twins born the same day.
Not just same day, but
same time.
Yeah, close time. If they were born like 4 hours apart, then other astrologers could also find them different.
My question is, as per the Indian astrology, like India and Pakistan
yeah,
have the same date of birth,
yeah,
including the time.
No, that's not true.
That's not true because of the time zone.
Not just time zone actually.
Their Independence Day.
They celebrated one day ahead actually.
On 14th.
On 14th, yeah. 14th morning, that's when they
Celebration
celebrated.
is one thing, but actually the division.
Right, but the thing is, when the British divided into 2 countries, Pakistan chose to become Pakistan on August 14, but India chose to wait till the midnight, and they did it on the midnight between 14 and 15. So there is a difference of almost 12 hours, almost 18 or 20 hours. So they are not exactly the same charts. Actually, if you are curious, the charts of Pakistan and India are very well studied by astrologers. And see, the problem is for US, we have some charts, but I'm not 100% convinced by any of them because they don't explain all the past events successfully. But in the case of India and Pakistan, the charts are pretty reasonable. So this is the Pakistan chart. In the Pakistan chart, Moon is in Ardra constellation and Aries is the rising sign. And for those of you who are interested in the data, by the way, talking about the time zone, they had the same time zone. Now they have a different time zone. Now they have a different time zone. But at that time, they had the same time zone. Karachi.
So even if you take like exactly midnight of 15th as
but they did not
demarcation, it is 11:30 p.m. for them.
Right. But they actually chose to do it one day ahead, one day earlier. So it's actually midnight of 14. That's when the new state of Pakistan came into existence. Even though the new state of India did not come into existence at that time. Actually, it was 24 hours later that India came into existence. And some people take morning 9 or 9:30 on that day because that's when the celebrations happened. The new nation of Pakistan was celebrated in the morning of August 14. So some people take that as the chart, but officially the state came into existence at midnight on August 14. So some people take the midnight of August 14, 1947, and I believe Karachi was taken as, because Karachi was the center for a while before Islamabad became the capital, and all the celebrations also happened in Karachi. So some people take Karachi as the place for this chart. So that is the chart that I have. This is the chart that I use. August 14, 1947, midnight. The time zone is IST, 5 hours 30 minutes east, and the place I believe is Karachi, 67 degrees 3 minutes east, 24 degrees 52 minutes north. So this is the chart of Pakistan. And if you want to see what dasha they are running, first let us study Pakistan chart for the next 10-15 minutes. What dasha should be applied to Pakistan? Can somebody give me an opinion? What is the dasha that is applicable? Let's go systematically. Is Dvisaptati Samadasha applicable? Is Lagna Lord in 7th or 7th Lord in Lagna? No. So Dvisaptati Samadasha is not applicable. What are the other dashas that we know? Chaturasthiti Samadasha. It is applicable when 10th Lord is in 10th house. And 10th house is empty. Forget the 10th Lord. There is nobody there. And what is the other dasha? Sun in Lagna. That is Shashtihayani dasha. Is Shashtihayani dasha applicable?
No.
There is nobody in Lagna. Lagna in Vargottama, that is Shatabdika. Is Lagna in Vargottama? No. So none of these dashas are applicable. And there is another dasha. Lagna in Sukramsa, Lagna in a Venusian Amsa, Lagna in the Navamsa ruled by Venus. And that dasha is Dvadashotri dasha. That dasha is applicable. Dvadashotri dasha is applicable. Pardon me?
Venusian Navamsa.
Applicable if Lagna is in Venusian Navamsa. Lagna is basically in Taurus or Libra. But unfortunately, this is one of the dashas that I have not found consistently working. I use the before mentioned dasha, Shatabdika, Dvisaptati Shashtihayani, Chaturasthiti Samadasha, I use them when they are applicable. But with Dvadashotri dasha, there are some missing links. There is something else. What Parasa said is Shukramsha. Does it mean Venus Navamsa or Venus being in Navamsa? I'm not exactly sure. And I haven't done much research on it, but in the few charts where it is applicable, when I tried it, I wasn't really happy, including my own chart. So, I'm not really confident about this dasha, so we'll just use the normal Vimshotri dasha when you're not sure of what to use. Vimshotri is something that will always work. So, we can just use Vimshotri dasha and
Always work.
yeah.
Let's say some other dasha is applicable.
Yeah.
Both of them for that person.
You can use both of them, but the other dasha will give much crisper results. Vimshotri, it will be more fuzzy. Other dashas will be much more crisp. So it is more advisable to use other dasha. Suppose Disaptatisama dasha is applicable, I would advise using it. But there are people who use just Vimshotri dasha and make reasonable predictions. So even Vimshotri would work, but you have to sometimes bend over your backwards. Suppose you want to see when the person got married. With the Disaptatisama dasha, you would just look at the 7th house in Navamsa or something obvious, you will find the link. But with Vimshotri, you may have to do some indirect logic. So it will be more fuzzy. But the bottom line is, Dvadashotri dasha needs some more work, some more research. And there may be some missing links. So that is why I am not going to use that. And when you are, like I said, when you don't know what to use, Vimshotri, Narayana, these are dashas that always work. So first let us see the Vimshotri dasha of Pakistan.
Whether we have to start from moon or Lagna.
Yes, absolutely. Should we start from Lagna or moon? If you look at Vimshotri seed strength comparison health in the Nakshatra Dasha tab, moon has one planet in Kendra. By default it selects Janma Nakshatra. If I select Lagna Nakshatra, there are 7 planets in Kendra. And you can see that here actually. Here if you see the quadrants from Lagna have so many planets. But the thing the software does is, it doesn't take the houses, but it takes that Nakshatra Pada as the center and takes 4 Nakshatra Padas on this side, 4 Nakshatra Padas on that side. So these houses that the quadrants that the software uses, they may actually be multiple signs. You see what I am saying? Suppose Lagna is in the last Pada of Aries. So when you take the quadrants from Lagna for the purpose of Nakshatra strength comparison, Lagna Nakshatra and Moon Nakshatra strength comparison, you take that Nakshatra Pada and 4 on this side and 4 on that side. So those 4 would be in Taurus. So you are taking basically houses not based on signs but based on Nakshatra Pada, taking the Nakshatra Pada as the center. And again, this is not something from the tradition or something that is accepted by everybody. Some people, Sanjay ji for example, from what I know, because with Sanjay ji you never know exactly what he does. He's very, very innovative. Not only innovative, he's very secretive and he's very teasing. He doesn't give you the full picture, he gives you half of it and then he leaves. So he is that kind of a person for me.
But we have cartoons.
Okay, let us not discuss his chart in a negative light. But he doesn't believe in spoon feeding. He believes that just give a small hint, when the person deserves to get the full knowledge, he will get it. And then when he gets the full knowledge, then he will say, see, why didn't you think of it earlier? Then he will tell you the next step. And sometimes he even, when you are correct, he will intentionally mislead you. And then you get convinced when you use it. And after 1 year you say, no, you were wrong that day. Then you say, yeah, why didn't you say it that day? So he's that kind of teacher. He's not like me. I like just spoon feeding. If I'm confused, I will leave it there. But if I'm not confused, I will share whatever I know. But he's not like me. He's a different kind of teacher. So bottom line is, what I was saying is, Sanjay ji, from what I know, based on my latest knowledge, he does not use this. He just uses the 4 signs and then he sees the strength. But what I do is, this is what I do. And my logic is, see, it's not just Moon Nakshatra. There are some other nakshatras like Utpanna Tara, which is the 5th star from the Moon star. Shema Tara, this is the 4th star from Moon star. And then there is Adhana Nakshatra, this is the 8th star from Moon star. So classics mention Vimshotri Dasha from all these stars. From Moon star, from the 5th star from Moon star, the 4th from Moon star, the 8th from Moon star, the Lagna star, and even Mandi star. So there are several things mentioned in the classics. So when you take the 8th star from Moon star, in most of the charts, it will be in a quadrant from Moon. If you take quadrants based on houses. So how do you judge, if you are just looking at the signs, there is no way you can judge the stronger of those two. So then I hit upon this idea of taking that Nakshatra Pada as the center and finding houses. In that case, there is a differentiation. Those two are not exactly the same, the 8th star from Moon star and Moon star. So if you don't understand this, don't worry about it. But bottom line is, I had some logic based on which I thought this should be the correct thing. And by the way, Sanjay ji did teach about house division based on Nakshatra Pada, taking the Nakshatra Pada as the center and 4 nakshatra padas on each side and finding houses. That kind of house division for certain specific purposes he is teaching. So that's not my invention, but my only contribution is using that to decide the strength of various nakshatras. And when I tried this versus the other thing in a few charts, few mundane charts, I find this working better. So I'm more satisfied by this, so and that's what I am teaching. But if you don't like that in the software, there is an option. See here, sign containing the nakshatra pada is the first house. And this is pada and 4 padas on either side form the first house. There are 2 options. If you select this, the other one will be unselected. If you select this, the other one will be unselected. So you can select, they are mutually exclusive selections. If you select this, when you look at the number of planets in quadrants from moon, it will take the entire sign of moon as the first house, entire 4th house, 4th sign as the 4th house, and counts the planets in them. On the other hand, if you select this, which I selected, it takes the pada occupied by moon and 4 padas on each side as the first house, and then does the same thing, 90 degrees away, same thing, 180 degrees away, 270 degrees away, and looks at all those nakshatra padas, sees if there are any planets in them, counts those planets. So that will be the number of planets in quadrants from moon. And it does the same thing for Lagna. And when you do that, it comes up with this count. And this is tough to do manually because you have to look at the nakshatra pada, etc. But the other one, the other approach, you can actually manually count. If you do that, for example, look from Lagna. This quadrant has 4 planets, this quadrant has 1 planet. So how many planets in quadrants from Lagna? 5. And how many from moon? 1, Mars. You don't count moon as a planet, because that would be unfair then. When you are comparing the strength of Lagna and moon and counting the number of planets in quadrants from them, if you count moon also, then you are biasing towards moon. But the rule is, if Lagna and moon have the same number of planets in quadrants from them, then you count moon also. Moon basically gets the tiebreaker vote, like a vice president in a senate or something. It's not exactly veto, it's basically the tie resolution power. So, and one word of caution is, there are some geographical areas of India where Lagna Vimshottari Dasha is very popular. In those areas, I know some Kerala astrologers, for example, they don't even use Chandra Vimshottari. For them, Lagna Vimshottari is the only Dasha. They take Vimshottari Dasha just from Lagna always. And they make predictions with that. So that tradition is also in vogue. But what our tradition teaches is, Chandra is most important. Chandra is the mind. Lagna is application of your intelligence, what you do to the world, and moon is how you take the world, how you react to the world, how you experience the world. Moon is your experience and Lagna is your action. You act in the world through Lagna and you experience the world through moon. So that is the difference. So ideally, Sanjayji teaches that both are always applicable. He doesn't necessarily disagree with these astrologers who always take Lagna Vimshottari. Both are relevant. Lagna Vimshottari and Chandra Vimshottari, both of them are applicable to every human being. But when we are talking about somebody's life, we are more interested in how they are experiencing the world than what they are doing. Because there is a link between the two. And most people are, especially people who have a strong moon, they are reactive people. People who have a strong Lagna, they are active, they are more proactive people. So the idea is, if Lagna is stronger, such a person doesn't really care. He has that strength of, that inherent strength to not worry about what the world thinks. So his actions in the world are not really influenced unduly by what the world is thinking about him. So for such a person, reactions to what others are saying is actually a small part of his existence. What he is doing is more important to him. If somebody has a stronger moon, he is more reactive. For him, what the world is thinking about him, that defines his life. So, from this point, that is basically the motivation for saying you find which is stronger. And what Sanjayji teaches is, even if Lagna is stronger, still, unless this is a really, really motivated person, Chandra Vimshottari is enough to see the event. So, Sanjayji's teaching is, use Chandra Vimshottari, the normal moon-based Vimshottari, for human beings. But when it comes to mundane charts, in mundane charts, Lagna is equally important.
Who cares about Pakistan and no one cares about what other people see?
Right.
Not based on what's
What Pakistan does is more important. When you are looking at Pakistan's fortune, what Pakistan does is more important than what other people are thinking and how Pakistan is reacting to it, how it is feeling, how it feels other people do it. That is less important. So in mundane charts, there is no specific importance of moon. See, the problem is with human beings, moon is actually the karaka for human beings. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but there is something known as Pranapada Lagna. It's shown as PP in the chart, in the charts in the software. That Pranapada Lagna in Navamsha should have moon in a trine or 7th from it for somebody to be born as a human being. If you see a chart in which Pranapada Lagna and moon are not in 1st by 7th, Samasaptaka or mutual trine, the chart is wrong. There is some small error. But don't worry about it because Pranapada Lagna changes very fast. Every few seconds it changes. So it's very easy to, maybe by adding half minute you can make it correct. You can make the human chart. But there are rules based on a strong influence in a trine from Pranapada Lagna. Pranapada is basically, the Pada means the base. Pranapada Lagna is the basis of your prana, the basis of your life. So that should be moon because moon is the karaka for mind. Human beings are mental beings. For them, mind is the most important part of their existence. They are strong-minded people. I don't mean mind is strong, but there are people for whom mind is the strongest part of their existence. The most important part of their existence. Similarly, for fish, it's supposed to be Ketu. For birds, it's supposed to be Sun. And for horses, for example, it's supposed to be Venus. So when you are looking at the chart of a horse, if you don't find Venus in a trine from Pranapada Lagna, it's a wrong chart. There is something wrong. And it is conceivable that there are dashas based on Venus nakshatra for horses. It may not be the normal Chandra Vinchotri. So all that is again researchable. But bottom line is, because moon is also the karaka for human beings, for that reason, the moon-based Vinchotri gets predominance. Actually, moon-based nakshatra dashas get predominance over all other nakshatra dashas for human beings. But when you are talking about Pakistan, you are not talking about a human being. Of course, it is made up of human beings. But when you are talking about Pakistan as an existence, as an entity, it's not a human being. So it's not moon-based. So let us switch to Lagna Vinchotri Dasha.
So that means for Monday chart, you don't have to check the strength. You just take
No. I'm not saying that. Check the strength and go by the strength. In human beings chart, check the strength. Suppose moon has 2 planets in quadrants and Lagna has, let's say, 4 or 3. Still you may decide to favor moon. Unless Lagna is much stronger. I wouldn't define what I mean by that. I would want to leave it as a fuzzy thing. I don't want to define it, but unless Lagna is much stronger, I would use Chandra Vinchotri for human beings. But for mundane charts, you don't have any such bias. You just go by the rules. Whichever is stronger, you use it. And there is actually another Vinchotri mentioned in some classics. That is Surya Vinchotri. You take the nakshatra occupied by sun. Because what does sun show? Atma. So for people who are driven by their soul, for whom Atma is the defining part of their existence, not mind or body, not their actions or their reactions. For such people, they have a strong sense of purpose, strong willpower, very active soul. They have seen their soul, they have experienced. Most of us haven't experienced our soul. We only experience our mind, but we don't really have an experience of our soul. But these are spiritually advanced people. These are yogis who have experienced their soul. For such people, sun can be used. And also, not only for those people, but when you are looking at conception charts, there is something known as Adhana Chakra. Basically, when a child was conceived, when the zygote was formed, when a soul enters into the zygote, that's called the conception chart. You make a chart for that. Basically, that's active for the next 9 months or so, and it is active until the actual birth occurs. So for that, in case you have an accurate chart, there are some great scholars. For example, Santanam, he did experiments with with him and his wife. He had accurate conception charts, and he had accurate birth charts associated with them, and he correlated them. And there are some principles given in classics. The links between the Adhana Chakra and the Janma Chakra, there are some clear links. If you know one, you can derive the other, either way. That is theoretically the case, but there are obviously, in any sophisticated knowledge from the Vedic tradition, always some important things get missing in this Kali Yuga. So there are some missing links, and in order to resolve these, Santanam, late Santanam, he did some research. So if you have his Brihat Parasar Hora Sastram, for example, there is a small section on the Arhan Chakra. There he gave a couple of examples. So you can find a few examples like that, but just hypothetically, let us say you have a conception chart and you want to see how the pregnancy would go. Then you can use Surya Vimshavati Dasha, theoretically. I'm just telling you the theory. This is something that I have not experimented with, but this is the theory that comes from the tradition. You use the sun's nakshatra, find Vimshavati, compress it to 9 months, then you see important events during the conception. Okay, now coming back to Pakistan. So, we have to apply Lagna Vimshavati Dasha. Okay. How is the Dasha right now? How is Pakistan's Dasha right now? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Overall, is it a good Dasha or bad Dasha? Yeah. Okay, it's a good Dasha, overall, good. So, for Pakistan, the current Dasha is a good Dasha, it's Jupiter Dasha. What else? Look at Navamsa. What does Navamsa show in mundane charts, in the charts of nations? Interactions with other countries, the foreign relations, the dharma, the international dharma, the antarjatiya dharma. So, how is it? How is Jupiter Dasha? Is it a good Dasha or a bad Dasha? Not 8th Lord, he is in 8th. He is the 3rd and 6th Lord, a great functional male fig, and he is in the 8th house. Good or bad? Good. Why? Yeah. So it gives what yoga does it give? Viparita Raj Yoga, the reversal Raj Yoga. So basically from rags to riches kind of yoga. That is, this is a reversal. This is going from one extreme to the other extreme kind of Raj Yoga. So when that yoga is present, what did I tell you earlier? How will the Dasha start and end? It starts on a negative note, it starts badly, but slowly it gets, not slowly, it could be sudden also, because usually Viparita Raj Yogas are sudden, they don't slowly happen. Normal Raj Yogas can slowly happen, but within Raj Yogas, there is a sudden reversal of fortune, from one extreme to the other extreme. So, for a while during this Dasha, Pakistan was in shambles, their economy was in shambles, their relations with other countries were not exactly great, and then suddenly things changed for them. And then they became the number one ally in the war on terrorism for US. They were an ally of US always, but relations were actually sinking in 90s. And after Musharraf came to power in a coup, the relations really plummeted. Commonwealth countries, the UK and other Commonwealth countries, they suspended Pakistan from Commonwealth. So their foreign relations were at a low point, very low point. Even with US, the relations were not exactly great. But once the September 11 incident happened, suddenly there was a lot of pressure put on Musharraf, and he took the wise decision of helping US. And now they are number one ally of US. Things may change in future, but at least for now, they are very well placed. They are getting the weapons that they want. Their relations with many countries are improving. Even with India are improving, etc.
When we looked at the transits last week,
Yeah.
we are referencing the map of the natal moon.
Yes.
So will we be able to look at the same thing, putting the transits as 11th, and then see if that will be applicable that the transits at the time in this Dasha have caused it?
Yes, we can. We can do that.
But that is a different type of moon. So will the country have anything to do with the moon when you are busy in this case?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
I would look at it. My guess would be look at the transits in the Lagna.
Yeah. I haven't really done a lot of work on transits for these countries, but whatever work I have done, I have just used the standard principles where you use moon. So I did whatever analysis that I did in the past based on moon, but the point that you raise is very It's a very valid point. We have to re-examine what Moon stands for, what Jupiter stands for, what Venus stands for, because all those planets stand for certain things within us. But when you're talking about a nation, they could stand for slightly different things, and the meanings could be different. So the idea of finding the transits based on Moon, of course, Ashtavarga is based on finding transits from all differences, but we give importance to Moon because he's the important planet he's the important difference for human beings. He shows the mind. But when you are talking about a nation, perhaps it's not really so important. Lagna could be important. But again, the Moon in a nation's chart would show the common mood of the country, the common mood of the masses. That's what Moon would show. But when you are looking at important decisions taken by the country, Moon may not be so relevant. Lagna may be more relevant because at the time of September 11, when Musharraf chose to go with US, he may be taking a wise decision, but the whole country may be against it. So when you look from Moon, it may be actually a bad transit. The whole country may be feeling uncomfortable with the direction of the country. You see what I'm saying? So the importance that we give to Moon may actually have to be understood in a slightly different context in mundane chart. So your point is a very good point, but some work needs to be done on that. So, yes, Pandit.
And the Ragamaliga yoga, I don't know if it is applicable in D9.
Yeah.
At least Mala yoga kind of thing.
Yeah.
That triggers the change in the relations in their fiber.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
You can start the latest from 2001 onwards. From
Yeah.
Venus, Sun, Moon, Mars, Rahu, all
Yeah.
fall in that.
Right. That's a good point actually. Oh, there is Rahu. Okay. Then there is no Marika yoga. Yeah. Ideally, it should be 5 houses, but even with 4 you can take it. But Rahu definitely, Rahu Ketu cannot be the only planets. If there is some other planet with Rahu, then you can say that. Anyway, coming back to the discussion, Jupiter being the 3rd and 6th lord in the 8th house and giving Viparita Raj Yoga, there was a reversal in fortune for Pakistan as far as international relations are concerned. In the beginning of Jupiter Dasha, they were a not so sought after country. But now they are a very sought after country in the international domain. Lot of countries have good relations with them, and President Bush keeps referring to them very often in his speeches. So that's what this Viparita Raj Yoga shows. How is the Ketu Antardasha? Is it a good Antardasha or a bad Antardasha? I'm not just talking about internal relations, but overall for the country, is Ketu Dasha a good Dasha or bad Dasha? Yeah. Ketu is a malefic in the 8th house, but in his own house. So what would you say based on that?
Because he's earlier straightforward.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So it makes the person straightforward, but being in the 8th house, would he give some troubles?
Troubles, but I mean, because
Some sudden changes, troubles, etc. are possible.
although he's a male, he can destroy the house in the house.
Pardon me? Normally, if Ketu was in 8th house, without that house being his own house, if Ketu was in 8th house in some other sign, the results will be what?
Then he will destroy.
It would be a terrible result. He would destroy the house. Actually, the results given in classics for Ashtama Ketu are disease, undiagnosable disease. So there will be some disease that will fill your body like a pest, and you can't even find out what's going on, and it will destroy you. That's the result given in classics for Ketu in the 8th house. See, basically Ketu is like the fire and smoke. He burns wherever he is. He is Dhomaketu. He is the smoke. He reduces everything to smoke, so that there is moksha. So that's what Ketu does. And if he is in some other house, you can say that. But he is in his own 8th house here, so it's actually contained. But still, it's not completely his own house. The stronger lord is Mars actually. Mars is the real 8th lord, but Ketu is still in his own house, but it's not completely his own house. So it will be bad. The result of Ketu being in the 8th house, some undiagnosable disease, that is possible, but it will not be so bad. It will not burn the country away. So there was some trouble from terrorism even in Pakistan, Pakistan was infested with terrorism. By the way, Ketu is the planet who shows terrorism. Ketu and Rahu are the planets for terrorism. And Rahu are the bosses, the planners, the think tanks, the terrorist think tanks, like Osama bin Laden, I don't know the names. Who? Al-Zawahiri, Ayman Al-Zawahiri, right? All these guys. The who's who of the terrorism is shown by Rahu, the north node. And Ketu, the tail of the dragon. Ketu will show the who does everything. The executors. Basically these are headless people. Ketu is headless. So basically these terrorists, they don't apply their head. They don't have any head. Whatever head they have is chopped off so that they cannot think and they just execute their instructions. People like Muhammad Atta, all these people. So Rahu and Ketu are the terrorists. So if you see in a national chart, if you see 8th house or 6th house or 12th house or Bhadrakasthana being activated in during a particular dasha or antardasha, and if you see Ketu involved, you can say that the problem will be because of terrorism. That is one possibility. It's not always the case, because Ketu shows, for example, religious fanatics, fundamentalist fanatics, who want to destroy mosques or destroy temples, blast temples or go and blast mosques. Those people who do this kind of activities, again, they are headless people. I'm sorry if anybody who's listening to this audio supports such activity, but come to think of it, it's a headless activity. So that kind of fanaticism is also shown by Ketu. They can come together also sometimes, unfortunately. But Ketu basically shows, on the positive side, Ketu can also show people who give up their ego, who go in the moksha marga. So that is also shown by Ketu. But at the same time, Ketu also shows these headless people like terrorists, fanatics, religious fanatics, etc. So when you see Ketu related problems, you can suspect one of those kind of problems. So this 2000 August to 2001 August is a bad period. But how is the Venus period? Is Venus, is Jupiter Venus a good period?
Venus actually is Saturn and Mercury there. All those planets.
Venus is the Saturn.
Oh, you're talking about now on.
Yeah, first let us focus on the international relations. So from the point of view of international relations, Venus is the Saturn. Is their combination good or bad? Anybody thinks that it's bad? Why?
No, I'm not saying that. I want to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
Actually, I agree that it's.
Okay, what did you want to say?
No, this is also deception because, like Pakistan and rather,
Who shows deception? Which planet?
Rahu.
Yeah, but where is Rahu involved? Where is Rahu involved here?
I can see this house Rahu is in.
He is in the 5th house. Yeah. Rahu is strong. But Rahu, in Navamsa, if Rahu is strong, in the house of emotions, in the 5th house, 5th house is the house of abilities, the house of emotions, etc. If Rahu is in the 5th house and he is very strong, it doesn't mean this is a straightforward country. When it comes to international relations, there can be some clever maneuvering, deception, etc. That is not ruled out. But talking about the particular Antardasha, Venus Antardasha, what do you see in the Venus Antardasha?
Lagna Lord.
He is Lagna Lord. So Lagna, what does Lagna show? Fresh beginning. If there is any problem, solving the problem or making a new beginning in life. And here in life, in foreign relations. So being the Lagna Lord, taking part in a brilliant Raj Yoga. Shani and Shukra Raj Yoga is always excellent for Taurus Lagna and Libra Lagna. So Taurus and Libra Lagna, if you have a yoga between Shani and Shukra, it's most auspicious. Even for Makara Kumbha. Basically, for Tula Lagna, for Libra ascendant, Saturn is a Yogakaraka, 4th and 5th Lord. He is a quadrant as well as trine Lord. And Venus is Lagna Lord. He is the seed of existence. So when they are together, it's a Raj Yoga. It's actually a couple of Raj Yoga. And moreover, they are friends. Raj Yoga between friends is good. It's much better than Raj Yoga between enemies.
India is going to rejoin Pakistan and form Brihad.
Pardon me?
India and Pakistan are going to join and form Brihad.
Join what?
They're going to join together again.
Okay, that's an interesting prediction. We'll take it up later. Lot of people do want to see that, but we'll talk about it later. Because I do have some Pakistani friends that I like who listen to these lectures.
You don't want to agree.
And they are very nice people. Yeah. Okay. So Venus Antardasha don't you agree that this has been, Jupiter-Venus has been a really, really beneficial Antardasha? But in terms of international relations, will Pakistan have to make any compromises during this period, or will Pakistan seem to have made some compromises in this period? Where is the bhoga? In Jupiter Antardasha, look at the bhoga of Venus, because that is what is experienced. The bhoga is in Virgo. From Jupiter, Venus is in 9. The 9 from Venus is Virgo. So the bhoga, what you experience is 12th house. What does 12th house mean? Giving up, relief also. 12th house is the house of relief, being relieved, being comfortable, because it is the moksha trikona. 4th house, the house of sukha, starts the moksha trikona, and 12th house, it ends the moksha trikona. So it is the comfort of, okay, now everything is resolved, kind of relief. So 12th house will show, even in human chart, 12th house will show relief, the ultimate happiness where you are not bothered, you are not shackled by something. If you feel shackled by something, the shackling as well as removal of the shackles is shown by 12th house. That is why it is the house of imprisonment. And imprisonment doesn't have to be physical imprisonment where you are kept in a cell. Even mentally, you may be imprisoned. You may be feeling uncomfortable about something. And when your shackles are removed and you feel relief, that is 12th house. And 12th house also shows giving up something, making compromises. And most of the times all these are related. There is a link between all these things. So, because the bhoga falls in the 12th house, which has A8, which shows sudden development. So, basically there can be some sudden developments and there can be some compromises that Pakistan makes. But this is a very good Antardasha for Pakistan. There will be some compromises. Bhoga shows what you see physically, what is experienced physically. But you can't ignore the Raj Yoga that Venus has with Saturn. And Venus is also the dispositor of Jupiter. So whatever Jupiter has the ability to give a Viparita Raj Yoga here. So that Viparita Raj Yoga can be triggered by Venus, who is the controller of Jupiter. He is the dispositor of Jupiter here. So he can act, and he is a very important planet in the Navamsha. So being the Lagna Lord showing new beginning, and being the dispositor and hence the controller of Jupiter, he can basically trigger that Viparita Raj Yoga. Yes, there is a AL. What does AL in Navamsha show? Image. So this is the period when a new image is made. Just like Lagna shows new beginning, AL shows new beginning from the point of view of image, perception. So there is a new image for Pakistan during this period. Now, the Antardasha that they ran recently is Sun Antardasha. Let us leave that. Sun is pretty well placed. But leave that. Go to Moon Antardasha. How is Moon Antardasha? Okay, the bhoga is in the 4th house. What does 4th house show? 4th house is sukha, basically. Comfort, happiness. And what gives comfort or happiness in the Navamsha field, in the matter of foreign relations? So more satisfactory and more peaceful relations with foreign countries. That can give you peace from the point of view of Navamsha. So 4th house, the bhoga is falling in the 4th house. So they will seem to, on the physical plane, from the point of view of relations with other countries, they will seem to make some peace during this particular period. Actually during Sun Antardasha also, during Sun and Moon Antardasha, they will seem to be making some peace with other countries. But what is the specific result? Forget the yoga, forget the bhoga. How is Moon placed? Is he badly placed or well placed? Why? Okay. Whose results will Moon give? In the Navamsha. Whose results will Moon give? Why? Okay. But because he is in Jupiter's house, he doesn't have to give Jupiter's results. He will give his own results normally. But if he is in exchange with some other planets, then results will be exchanged. He is in Jupiter's house, but Jupiter is not in his house. He is in Venus' house. So he has nothing to do with Jupiter. But what you can say is, in the Moon Dasha, when Moon Dasha comes, because Jupiter is his dispositor, he can get control. It's like, I live in somebody's house, and let's say I'm organizing a show at MIT, and let's say I'm organizing a music show, and my landlord, in whose house I live, or my boss at work, suppose they come and ask me, hey, I want to go to the show, the tickets are over, can you get a couple of tickets for me? I have to say, yes, I'll somehow manage. So because the dispositor has that control over you, you are at his mercy, basically dispositor can push his agenda during your dasha, when he is under the Saturn. So from that context I talked about Venus, Antardasha in the Jupiter Mahadasha. Venus is the dispositor of Jupiter. But here we are talking about Jupiter Dasha, and we are talking about Moon Antardasha. So as far as Moon Antardasha is concerned, Moon should ideally give his own results, but he is with Sun. So what is the meaning of that? So whose results will Moon give first? Sun. As far as international relations are concerned, Moon will give the results of Sun because of the exchange. And what are those results? Are they good results or bad results?
Sun also is a lot of 11th house. 11th problem.
He is Lord of 11th house, and 11th house is not a good house here. 11th is the house of fulfillment of desires, but at the same time it is Badhaka Sthana here. So it is bad. Okay, now complete your point.
I didn't see the Badhaka Sthana.
Yeah, he is the Badhaka Lord, and where is he? Like you said, he is in the 6th house. Pardon me?
That's good. The Badhaka Sthana Lord is in 6th. But if I...
Badhaka Sthana in 6 is not good. Why do you say it's good?
Badhaka Sthana is supposed to give him pain, but when
Yeah, the guy who has to give you pain, he is given charge of giving you enmity. Yeah, for Badhaka Lord, only 12th house, the house of giving up, that is the only house where he is auspicious. You are placing the guy who's told you to nag you, whose job is to nag you, his agenda is to nag you, he will give you nagging worries. You take him in the house of 12th house, which is basically house of giving up and compromises, and tell him to take care of it, then he can't really trouble you much. In any other house, he will trouble you. For Badhaka Lord, any house is inauspicious, except the 12th house. So, when especially 6th house is said to be one of the worst houses for Badhaka Lord. Yeah. 6th house is like a Badhaka. Naturally it's like a Badhaka Sthana, because it gives you obstacles, it gives you enmity. And Badhaka is your enemy, the unseen enemy. Badhaka is basically unseen enemy that you can't see. 6th house is seen enemy, but Badhaka is the unseen enemy. You can't feel him, you can't see him, you can't perceive him, but he is troubles you. Like a ghost.
my misconception, but I thought he's in charge of giving Bhada, but when his agenda and his 6th house is to be trouble.
Yeah.
The Bhadaka itself runs in trouble with what it was.
Not exactly. He is kept in charge of the house of giving you trouble. And also the house of giving you the energy to overcome the troubles. That house stands for giving you troubles and also the energy to overcome those troubles. And the guy who you are entrusting the job to is your unseen enemy, your Badhaka. So when you keep him there, he has certain agenda in his mind based on his ownership, and based on the placement he is given a particular job. So naturally, which job will he concentrate on? Because he has certain agenda. The first job of giving you worries. And he may even take away your ability to fight. So, 6th house is a bad house for Badhaka Lord. So here Sun is bad. But Sun Antardasha is a good Antardasha, because Sun was giving Moon results. Moon is fine. Moon is the 10th Lord. 10th means some karma in the society from the point of view of foreign relations. So being active in the world, doing things in the world, that's what 10th house shows.
Right, but even that is to be worried and trouble sitting. So I'm saying in my...
Right. So his job is 10th house, which is to let you do some karma. And you are placing him in the house of giving some worries and overcoming them, giving the ability to overcome them. And Moon is the natural karka for peace. He is in a peaceful house like Pisces. And when you tell him give him some troubles and let him overcome the troubles. Which one will he take? His agenda is to let Pakistan achieve something in the domain of international relations. So with that agenda, if you tell him, give him some troubles and give him the energy to overcome it, which one will he do? He will give him the energy to overcome existing troubles. He may not give new big troubles. So you have to keep in mind the inherent nature of the planet, the inherent nature of the sign, and always keep this in mind. This is like the very, very basic. The lordship shows the agenda. The planet cannot forget it unless he is forced to. That is his main agenda. And the placement shows the resources at his command. The resources are, hey, this is your resource. Take this resource and give him some trouble. And by the way, if he is another resource, take this and give him some energy so that he can overcome those troubles. So you give him these two resources. Which one will he use? It depends on his agenda and his nature. And of course the dispositor. If the dispositor is an evil, suppose this is not Pisces, this is Aries, and the planet is Mars, then the house lord, the lord who owns this house, he is more interested in this agenda than this agenda. I hope you remember which one is what. So he will tell the planet, being the house lord, he will tell the planet, okay, it's good that you are giving him the fighting spirit, but also give some troubles, otherwise there's no fun. That's what Mars will tell. So then Moon, the same Moon, owning the same house, he cannot own the same house in that case, but the same Moon can basically give slightly different results. So we have to keep all these basics in mind. We talked about them in the very early classes. The dispositor, the house owned, the house occupied. You have to keep all these and judge them judiciously. So here, because Moon's agenda is to let Pakistan do some things in the world, and he's in the 6th house, bottom line is, there may be some obstacles, but Pakistan will overcome those obstacles, and Pakistan will achieve something in the world from the point of view of international relations. So that is the result promised by Moon and given by Sun. Now the result promised by Sun is some worry, some problems, some tension. So that is what Sun promises. And Moon will discharge the duty for Sun. But the sign being Pisces owned by Jupiter, it won't be that bad. But compared to the last year, even though Pakistan seems to be making peace with India and so on, actually it may not be so smooth. The coming, is it a year? Yeah, the coming year and few months are not really going to be great for Pakistan from the point of view of international relations. There will be some pressure from some authoritative countries on them during this particular period. They will be forced to change. Sun shows, if Sun is showing any problems in natal chart, human charts, what does that show? Troubles from whom? From kings, from boss, from authoritative people. And for countries it shows troubles from US, UK, the big boss basically. So there may be some pressure, whether it comes out in the media or not, there may be some pressure that is kept on US, kept on Pakistan by US in the coming few months, coming 15 months. Now, how is it physically? Forget the Navamsa, international relations, but overall physically, how is this Dasha, Moon Dasha for Pakistan? Moon will give, whose results will Moon give? We can find it out in the second part of the MP3. Whose results will Moon give? In the Rashi chart. Pardon me?
Don't read the second part.
Moon and Mars are together. So Moon will end up giving the result of Mars. Is it a good result or bad result? What is Mars' agenda? He is the Lagna Lord. Lagna shows the well-being. It's the base of the existence. So Lagna Lord is the most important planet for anybody. He is the one who bothers about you the most. He bothers about your very well-being, your very existence. So Mars is a very benefic planet, and he is in the 3rd house. Is it a good house or bad house for Mars? It's one of the few good houses for Mars. It's the house of drive, initiative. So when Mars is in that house, the result that Mars promises is basically be bold, maybe some kind of new beginning, but aggressively safeguard the well-being of the country, And if somebody, for example, there was a prediction sometime back, I don't know who predicted, but somebody predicted that during 2005, 2006, Pakistan will break or Pakistan will join India. This was like 10 years back, somebody predicted, I don't remember who. But if you are looking at this dasha, could you imagine that during this Antardasha? Not really. This is a good Antardasha for Pakistan. And also, Moon and Mars have a Raj Yoga. Yeah. There is a Raj Yoga between them. But how is Rahu Antardasha? Let's skip over the Mars Antardasha where moon results are given. But how is Rahu Antardasha? So let us forget about relations. Let us focus on the Rashi, the overall existence of the country. Is it a good year for Pakistan or bad year? The 2007 year. Is Rahu a good planet or bad planet in this chart? What is his agenda? Good agenda or bad agenda? 11th Lord, so give some gain as well as Badhaka. Again, this is a mobile sign, Aries. So for mobile signs, 11th house is Badhakasthana. So he is the Badhaka Lord. And where is he placed? He is placed in the second house of resources. So when you take the Badhaka, whose agenda is to give you troubles that you can't diagnose and that you can't cure, uncurable troubles, and take him down. That is his agenda. You are placing him in the house of food. Keep him fed well. What will he do? He will feed you poison. So it's a Rahu. Actually, there is also a principle that Rahu in the second house shows death by poison. Second house is also the house of death. So when the Badhaka Lord is in Badhaka Lord, that too Rahu is in the house of death, in the second house, it shows some poisoning of the country. It doesn't promise auspicious results. So even if Pakistan does a good job of stemming the rot in terms of terrorism, the internal terrorism in Pakistan, in Rahu Dasha there can be some big problems coming up for Pakistan. It's not a good period. And moreover, remember this. You see, irrespective of where they are placed, usually Rahu Antardasha in Jupiter Dasha, Jupiter Antardasha in Rahu Dasha, there is some friction because the Dasha Lord is pulling in one direction, Antardasha Lord is pulling in another direction. They are poles apart. Jupiter is discretion, wisdom. Rahu is foolishness, deceit, deception, illusion. So when Rahu's period comes in Jupiter period, Rahu's period comes in Jupiter period or vice versa, there is some clash between the two factors and there is some problem. So 2007 and 2008 are not really a great and auspicious period for Pakistan. So, and also you can note that in the Rashi chart, what are the Arudha that Rahu associates with? Because Arudha are the physical manifestation. If you say that there was a war in that period, is war intangible or tangible? If Pakistan has some hostility for India or some other country, that hostility is intangible. What do you mean by hostility? It's in the minds of people. It's intangible. But when you say the war, Pakistan fought a war, that war is a tangible thing. So, which Arudha will show that? A6 is an important Arudha for wars, etc. But actually there is another chart that is more relevant for wars. But you can see that A6 is here. So, there can be wars or there can be some warlike confrontations basically. A6 will show tangible fighting. In other words, some kind of tangible confrontation with other nations or other entities. So A6 is there, UL is there. What does UL show? It's the manifestation of 12th house. 12th house is giving up or losing. So when A6 and UL are together in a nation's chart, usually when they war, they usually lose. It's not good for them to fight a lot because UL will show your physical loss, tangible loss, and A6 will show tangible confrontation. And when they are together, usually they go together. When you fight, usually you lose something. So better not fight. That is something that you can say generally, but it can be modified based on the annual charts, etc. And based on the agenda of a planet. For example, Mars is the 6th lord, let us say. and he shows fighting, and he has nothing to do with 12th house, let us say. And let us say that Mars has an influence on that sign that contains A6 and UL. Then even though he influences both the Arudhas, he will choose the one that is in tune with his nature. So he will choose A6. You see what I am saying? So just because they are together, it doesn't mean they will always go together, but they tend to go together. That's what you can say grossly speaking. So Rahu period, Pakistan should watch out. India should be very diplomatic. There is a small chance of another confrontation like Kargil, a past war. So during 2007, 2008, all the statesmen in the world like US President, whoever, George Bush or whoever is the president, then they should be very cautious and they should keep their tab on Pakistan during that period. How is the actually circuit Pakistan? I'm just curious about 2007 annual chart. Now let us see India's chart. See, India took independence one day later. Not when it was available, but they waited for the right day. They did not want to do it in the Ardra constellation, which is ruled by, who is the ruler of Ardra constellation? Anybody knows? Rahu in the Vinchotri Dasha scheme. In Yogini Dasha scheme is somebody else. In Visapta Dasha scheme it is somebody else. So the normal laws that we talk about are Vinchotri laws. But there is a deity. That is the real Lord. These laws are not really laws. No, Sarpa is Ashresha. Who is Ardra? Yeah, it's in the name. Ardra means belonging to Rudra. Shiva, not exactly Shiva, Rudra. Rudra is the Rudra. Pardon me? The destructive form of Rudra. The fiery form of Shiva. The fire. Rudras are fiery in nature. They are the manifestation of the fire in the world. But if you are talking about Ishana, that's different. That is the auspicious Shiva. And Rudras are, they are not exactly inauspicious because it is Rudras who keep our life, keep the body, life and soul together. They are the ones who bond everything together. Because that is the fire, the spark that keeps the whole world going. And it is not when Rudra comes to you that somebody passes away, somebody leaves this body, but when Rudra leaves the body. As long as there is Rudra, the Rudras are intact, Yama doesn't come nearby. When the Rudras are unhappy and they decide to leave, that's when Yama comes to the person. So Rudra, some people think that they are destructive. It is true that they are destructive because their leaving leads to destruction. They are the life force which stops the destruction. That is the right way to put Rudra. That is the real purpose of the Rudra. So if you keep worshipping Rudras with Rudranamakam, Rudra Chamakam and other Rudra prayers, the Rudras will be happy and they will be with you and you will be fully blessed. Because Rudras are the energy, the fire. And when you do, for example, yesterday when I was doing the Satyanarayana Vratam, we have these Pancha Loka Palakas, the 5 rulers of the world. And there you pray to, first you invoke Ganesha, Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra and Durga, Gauri. These are the, not Durga, it's Gauri. So, these are the 5 deities and they are the rulers of the Panchabhuta, the 5 states of existence. Ganesha rules earthy nature and Vishnu rules ether, Akasha. Brahma rules Vaitattva, air. Air means expansion. And creation is basically an expansion. That is why Brahma is the creator and he rules over Vaitattva. And Vishnu is Akashattva, ether, all pervading, but not visible. When Rakshas want to see, they can go and see Shiva, they can go and see Brahma, but they can never see Vishnu. Vishnu is unseeable and yet he is all pervading. So Akashattva is Vishnu and Shiva, not Shiva, Rudra. The mantra is Kardudraya Pratyatasa, that is Rudra's mantra, not Shiva's mantra. That mantra, with that mantra you invoke Rudra as the manifestation of the fire, Agni-tattva. So they are the manifestation of, they are the rulers of the Agni everywhere in the world. They are the rulers of the Agni, including our own internal Agni. Yes. See, Nehru would never accept it, but some astrologers, some South Indian astrologers, like Dr. Raman, they have said that some astrologers were consulted. But actually there were different factions. Some astrologers wanted one muhurta, some other astrologers wanted some other muhurta, and they did not want to really do it at like 9:57 or something, like marriages or something. Because Nehru has this rule of being secular. He may have some belief, but he
was agnostic. He was not believing in God.
that's the image he projected. Whether in reality, even if he believed, he didn't want people to know about it. That is Nehru. That is Nehru for you. So, because of that, he wanted something like midnight or something like that. So, they chose basically something acceptable within those images. So, it's not really the greatest muhurta, but within the given constraint, astrologers came up with the best that they could. But you should see that both Pakistan and India, in both the charts, all the planets are between Rahu and Ketu, giving Kalamrita Yoga. Both the countries have that yoga. Yeah. If planets start from Ketu and go up to Rahu, if Rahu is leading, that's called Kala Sarpa Yoga. If Rahu is earlier and Ketu is leading, all the planets are between Rahu and Ketu, that's called Kalamrita Yoga.
Over time, it becomes Amrita.
Pardon me?
Over time.
Over time it becomes Amrita. And with Kala Sarpa Yoga, over the time it becomes poison. It becomes poison. It may start as Amrita, but eventually, finally, there will be only poison. The person will accumulate terrible karma. Unless there are some relieving factors. There are some relieving factors, like the planet in exaltation. There are some conditions given in India. It's actually not mentioned in any classes, interestingly. This is a very dreaded yoga. Actually, you don't have to really worry about this yoga. Even if Kala Sarpa and Kalamrita Yoga are present in a chart, usually they don't hurt you when you are 20 or 30. They will fructify in the 40. That's when those yogas work. And they do big changes. They make big changes in your life. But it's not something that you should really worry about. There are so many other conditions. So it's not like you can't apply a blanket statement. Oh, Kala Sarpa Yoga, terrible. Because there are some astrologers who exploit that.
Come up with greater meaning.
They come up with greatness, like Karkotaka Mahakala Sarpa Yoga. They don't say Kala Sarpa Yoga, they say Mahakala Sarpa Yoga. I haven't heard of it, distinctions. I only know Kala Sarpa Yoga. And perhaps based on the sign occupied by Rahu, you can give it different names like Vasiki, Karkotaka, Adiseshu, etc. That is definitely possible. But bottom line is it's the same yoga. And to scare people, some astrologers call it Mahakala Sarpa Yoga. For example, one person that I know, he's very learned in Mantra Shastra, he's very learned, he does a lot of pujas, he actually conducts a lot of homas and yajnas in this area. And when he went to an astrologer in India to consult about his daughter, he said, she has Mahakala Sarpa Yoga. Terrible. Everything will fall, the skies will fall. You must do certain remedies, certain pujas, certain yajnas you must do. Then only her life will be smooth. Otherwise, the heavens are falling. And then he said, actually I know all those things, can I do it? No, you should get it done only by my priest, he will do it. So unfortunately, there are such people. There are such people like that in India, unfortunately. They are basically commercial. They may have knowledge also, so I respect them for that knowledge. But along with the knowledge, they have that commercial greed, which is not a good quality for astrologer. And you should all remember that as astrologers, for anybody the greed is bad, but especially as astrologers, we want to understand the God within us. And we want to help people around us understand the God within them and find the right direction in life. And if we are greedy, and if we do bad karma for the greed, the karma that we incur is much worse than anybody else. Compared to a doctor who may cheat, an astrologer who cheats, he will really incur heavy karma. And nothing goes, you can't escape any karma. Nothing goes basically without troubling you. If not in this life, next life. If not next life, the life after that. But you will have to pay for it in some form of existence. So you should keep in mind that you should not be greedy. It is very bad for an astrologer. So try to instill that sense of duty within you. By using astrology, whenever you have time, help people. And if you want to make some money, personally I don't think that is a good idea, but that may be acceptable. But at least don't cheat people. There are some astrologers, they just know these kind of terms. They don't really know heavy astrology. They don't know sophisticated astrology. They just know certain yoga. They just say, oh, you are running 7.5 years Saturn, heavens are falling, you need to this yajna, only my priest will do it. Like that, they have certain negative things. When they see the chart, they see only those. And usually people who are in troubles go to astrologers. So they just exploit it. And these days, in old days at least, even if they exploit, the value used to be less. The money that they would demand used to be less. But now, it has risen, basically compatible with the multinational company salaries in India.
Less during that time, like, they charge $10, 10 rupees, or 10 rupees was really a lot of money then. But,
Yeah. But the thing is now in India, there are some people who still make not lot of money, people who are in the old economy, and there are some people who are in the new economy, the internet economy, the multinational company economy, and these people are making 10 times other people. And unfortunately, some of these astrologers, they are serving these people now, the upper stratum. They are serving the new economy, so their prices are basically based on the new economy, and people in the old economy are left out.
especially gemstones.
Yeah,
A lot of people make a lot of money.
yeah. I was seeing a program on one of the Telugu channels, TV channels, Teja TV or Gemini TV. They had one company that would give you tie-up between astrologers and this gem company, gemstone traders, and they have a one-stop shop basically. You go there, you get everything. And they were giving testimonials from people. She had all kinds of problems in the world. Once she wore that gemstone, life was like, it was so easy. Anyway, coming back to astrology, so India, you are asking if India and Pakistan are twins. They are not exactly twins. They were born a couple of days.
We wanted to see in 2007 what is.
Yeah. So let us see first what is the dasha for India. Is it Lagna Vimshatri or Chandra Vimshatri, which is dominant?
Chandra.
Lagna has 4 planets. Chandra has what? Only 1 planet?
No,
Okay. I think Moon is at the one end of the Rashi and Lagna is at the other end of the Rashi. Okay. Okay, let us do Lagna Vimshatri. Actually, is there any other dasha that you can apply for India? Quickly check and tell me. Lagna Lord in 7? No. 7th Lord in Lagna? No. Sun in Lagna? No. Lagna in Vargotama? No. 10th Lord in 10? No. So only Vimshatri. Okay. How is 2007 for India? India will run Saturn Venus. It will run Venus under Dasha in Saturn Mahadasha based on Lagna Vimshatri Dasha in India. What would you say about it?
Boga will fall in second house.
Yeah?
In the same,
No, it falls in the same house, in the Rashi chart.
in the Rashi chart.
Yeah.
Venus and Saturn are together.
Even in the Navamsa, it's not second house. In Navamsa, it falls in the 11th house.
That actually is good.
So is there any chance of any confrontation in Shani Shukra under Dasha? Shukra is the lord of 6th house and Lagna. Yeah, in the Rashi chart.
So that's good.
Yeah. So overall, he's a good planet, but whose result is he giving? That is the important point. So, tell me one thing. Since 1999, India has been running Saturn Dasha. Whose results are being given during Saturn Dasha at the physical level? Venus. Because if you arrange all these 5 planets in the ascending order of beneficence, it is Venus, tell me, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Sun, Saturn. So that is the order. So, let me write it down somewhere. Venus, next who was it? Mercury, Moon, Sun, Saturn. So who will extend a result? Venus and Saturn. And Mercury and Sun. And Moon will give his own result. Pardon me? Why Mercury is first? Why is Moon a benefic in this chart? Moon is not a benefic at all. This is Krishna Trayodasi. So, first of all, Moon is not even a benefic. And Mercury, he is mixed. He is with Venus, but he is with several malefics also. Mercury is mixed. So, a mixed planet is better than a malefic planet. Moon is fully malefic.
You don't take the natural significance, whether Venus is beneficial, there are replacement in the chart and then...
I would take based on this. In a particular chart, Mercury may be malefic. And here actually he is malefic. And suppose Moon, Mercury, Mars and Rahu are together, let us say. Then because Mercury is with more malefic than benefic, he would become malefic. And Moon, if he suppose Purnima Moon, full moon, suppose he is full moon, he would be benefic. So I would take Moon above Mercury in that case. That is my way of taking. So here Venus is the only benefic, all other planets are malefic, but Mercury is a mixed malefic and Moon is a full malefic. That's why Mercury comes before Moon. So Venus is giving Saturn results and Saturn is giving Venus results. So overall the Saturn Mahadasha, is it a good Mahadasha or bad Mahadasha? It's Lagna Lord's Mahadasha. Lagna Lord. And Lagna Lord shows new beginning. So this is a very auspicious dasha for India. And he is in the 11th from Arudha Lagna. Of course all these planets are. So because he is in the 11th from Arudha Lagna and also he is Lagna Lord. The 11th from Arudha Lagna shows gains, tangible gains. But if a bad planet is there, he may suppress the gain. But he is a good planet. Venus is a good planet. He is the Lagna Lord. So he will give lot of gains for the country, a new beginning for the country. So this is a good Mahadasha. Since 1909, it's a very good period for India. And Venus Antardasha. Venus Antardasha will be giving the results of Saturn. What are the results given by Saturn? First of all, he is in the third house. A malefic in the third house. Will India be bold and aggressive or will India be mild and soulful-like? It will be bold and aggressive and giving suffering to other people. So it is a good Antardasha from that point of view. And what are the Arudhas that Saturn is associated with? A7 and A6 are in Capricorn. So A6, can it show some tangible confrontation with another country? Yes, Saturn can actually give. So during that Antardasha, there can be a confrontation. And what does A7 show? Diplomacy, relations with other countries. So usually what this shows is A6 and A7 are together for India. What does it mean? Usually when what? That's not exactly what I was expecting based on the astrology. Exactly. A6 and A7 are together means confrontation and diplomacy go together. When there is a war, India tries to use some diplomacy to avoid the war. And when the war comes, during the war, India will do a lot of diplomacy with other countries so that unnecessary provocations or unnecessary interventions don't happen. So India's wars are accompanied with a lot of diplomacy, a lot of Kali Yuga diplomacy. A6 shows not just a war that has already started. The starting of a war, the conducting of a war, the end of a war, everything is shown by A6. And A7 is all the dealings with other countries, the diplomacy, the tangible diplomacy. Based on Mars.
Saturn and then
Pardon me?
Why are you taking A7 and A6? Because
Saturn is the lord of those Arudhas.
normally take it when it is placed in that house.
Placed or lord also, or aspect also. Everything can give result. If it is basically lord, it is his real agenda. The lord of a house, that is his agenda. He wants to do that. And if he is placed there, he is asked to do it. Whether he will do it or not is a separate thing. If he is placed in the house, he is asked to do that particular thing. If he has aspect on that house, Graha Drishti, then he has a desire to do it. If he has sign aspect on it, then he is not asked to do it, but he has the capability of doing it. He has certain capabilities which can make it do. He is basically disposed to do it based on this situation. If he has Argala, then what is the meaning of it? There is certain role he has to play when it comes. If Saturn has Argala on A6, there is certain role he must play when the war comes. If Saturn has Graha Drishti on A6, he has a desire to give it. And here, you know what? Every planet has Graha Drishti on A6. So a lot of planets want to give wars to India. And lot of planets wants to give diplomacy also. So Graha Drishti, out of all the planets who have a desire, just because you have a desire, you will not do it. Earlier I gave you the analogy of projects. The Graha Drishti is basically like, I want to work on a particular project. At my office, a nice project is starting up. And I want to work on that project because I like it. So that is Graha Drishti. Just because I want to work on it, I may or may not be able to work on it. But if I have a good relation with the Lord, because Lord is who is in charge, then I will be able to do it. And I told you that Karaka, he is basically like the overall project manager. The house Lord is like people manager, and Karaka is like the project manager. So even if I don't have a good relation with the Lord of the house, if I have a good relation with the Karaka of that particular thing, of that particular house or Arudha, then also I can convince that project manager and join that project. So if a planet has Graha Drishti and a good relation with the Karaka, then also it can happen. So you should remember all these basics that we covered in the first few classes. And here, out of all the planets who have Graha Drishti on A6, Saturn is the Lord also. So Saturn and the Grisha is certainly capable of giving some kind of confrontation, some kind of operation. So based on both the charts, the charts associated with A6 are running. So 2000, 2007, 2008, there should be some concern. But will it be bad for India? See, Rahu, if you remember, Rahu Antardesha was running for Pakistan. He was Badhaka, placed in the second house of death. But for India, is Saturn good or bad? He is Yogakaraka. And by the way, another thing, he has a Rajyoga with Venus. I don't know how close it is. 22, 20. Wow. So there is a very powerful Rajyoga in India's chart, given by Shukra and Shani, Venus and Saturn. Venus at 22 degrees 34 minutes, Saturn at 20 degrees 28 minutes. They are within 2 degrees roughly. So they are giving a nice Rajyoga in India's chart. And when will that Rajyoga be activated? Either Venus Saturn or Saturn Venus. That is when the Rajyoga will be activated. So during 2006-2009, there is some danger of a confrontation, but at the same time, this is the period when India's Rajyoga will be activated. So whatever we have been seeing, the rise of India is basically a prelude to a bigger Rajyoga that is likely to happen during 2008-2009. Yeah? What is appearing in D9? Yeah, but that's not a Rajyoga. That's a Viparit Rajyoga.
One is a lot of A7, the other is a lot of A9, A5. So these are good.
Yes, yes. That is a good point. See, Venus will show what are the Arudhas that Venus has control over. Because Arudhas are tangible things. We say he is Lagna Lord, new beginning. What is new beginning? It is a new beginning, but it's an intangible thing. But India's GDP grew by 10% this year. Or India's unemployment fell by 3% this year. That is a tangible thing. So all the Arudhas will show tangible things. India won a war. Pakistan submitted to India's demands in the Shimla agreement. That is a tangible thing. So all these tangible things are shown by Arudha. So we said A7 is diplomacy, A6 is war or quarrel or confrontation. It could be even verbal spat. It doesn't have to be physical war, because for that mastery is necessary. Of course, mastery, there is some involvement, but we'll leave that. But it doesn't have to be a physical war, but it's some kind of confrontation. That's why I was using the word confrontation. But Look at Venus. What are the Arudhas he associates with? A5, which is, what is A5? Recognition of the abilities by the world. In human beings' chart, we say that A5 shows your awards, your trophies, etc. For country, what would it show? Again, any formal, tangible recognition of the abilities, for example, like security, council seats, that's a recognition of India's ability. If all the magazines in the world which portray India as a poor third world country, if they start writing about India as an upcoming country, like they talk about China now, that is a recognition. So such tangible recognition is shown by A5. And A11 will show gains, tangible gains. Tangible gains and also the fulfillment of the desires, of deep desires. And A9 will show the Bhagyapada. It is the Arudha of the 9th house, the fortune. So this shows world, basically tangible manifestation of India doing its duty and India being fortunate. So India's fortune is shown by A9. And one important principle that you can keep in mind is, just like we say 9th Lord and 10th Lord being together is a Raj Yoga, if you see A9 and A10, the Lords being together, or A9 and A10 being together in a sign, that is very auspicious. Because then these things are coming together basically. A9 and A10 are the tangible aspects of 9th house and 10th house. If the Lords are together, that is an indirect Raj Yoga, that is talked about in some classics. So not all classics talk about Arudhas. These are talked about in some books. So because the A7 Lord is joining the A9 and A5 Lord, also A11 Lord, that Raj Yoga between Shani Shukra, it is not only at the truth level, but also at the manifestation level, tangible level. So at both levels, this Raj Yoga will fructify. Some Raj Yogas may fructify in the intangible domain. So those Raj Yogas world will not be able to see. But some Raj Yogas will fructify in both levels, tangible and intangible level. The intangible level is internal level and tangible level is all the material things. So this Shani Shukra period will be a very important period for India. Okay. Now the question is, we have this, now coming to your twins point, you asked about Vedic astrology can distinguish between twins, but what about countries? It is not people but countries that are twins. And you gave the example of India and Pakistan. Even though from the point of view of birth chart, independence chart, your point is wrong. From the point of view of other mundane charts like lunar new year chart, solar new year chart, your point is a very good point. Because when you look at the lunar new year chart of India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, they are likely to be the same. When you look at the lunar new year chart of London, Paris, let's say some other countries there, Portugal, Spain, all those nations. If you look at those, most of the times are likely to have the same Lagna rising in the Rashi chart at the time of New Year. So does it mean that everybody has the same fortune? So again, that shows that even in mundane charts like lunar New Year charts, Lagna is not, Rashi chart is not everything. Rashi chart is the overall state of existence of the country, overall mood in the country, overall the big things that are happening in the country. And that is only very gross, that's a very gross aspect. But there is a more subtle aspect in various divisional charts. You can look at all the divisional charts that we see for human beings in the case of nations also, even though some charts are more important in the charts of nations.
So don't you have to rank up the solar return chart with the original natal chart? If you put two together to get the real prediction?
Yes, if you have the natal chart. If you have the natal chart of a country, you can look at the solar or lunar new year chart and combine that with the natal chart and the dashas and transits, and then you can make good predictions. But what I am saying is, what if you don't have that? For countries for which you don't have the birth chart, if you don't know when a country was formed, because for some countries it's very suspicious, there is no formal date or time. So for those countries, what we do is, we use these lunar new year charts, the solar new year charts. These are not based on the independence data of the country. These are based on when moon comes to moon and sun conjoin, Chaitra Shukla Pratipada. Yeah. So for those charts which we covered in the last few classes, a few classes back we talked about those. In those charts, divisions are the key. But what that means is, when you see that divisions are the key in certain charts, obviously even in other charts, divisions are a key. You can't say that here I have different charts for India and Pakistan, so I will use only Rashi. But there I have the same Rashi charts, so I will use other charts. That is illogical. If you conclude based on certain things that divisional charts are important, they are important everywhere. Just because, see, some people, this is what they do. If you give them any chart, they will just look at Rashi chart and give you reading. But when you give the charts of twins, then they will look at divisional chart because Rashi is the same. That is illogical. If divisional chart is what shows marriage, career, education, etc., use it everywhere. Even if the person doesn't have a twin, there may be somebody born in the same town, a few minutes apart, in a different hospital, 2 miles away. Just because you don't know that person, you can't conclude that, well, I know only one person with this Rashi chart, so I will use this Rashi chart. That is very illogical. So, that is why we use Navamsya to see the foreign relations, and you can look at other divisions also. And some of the divisions are more important than other divisions in the case of natal charts. I don't know if we talked about Shadvarga, Saptavarga, Dasavarga in the earlier classes. See, the 16 divisional charts that Parasara talked about and that I taught you are called Shodasya Varga. You have Rashi, Navamsya, Drekana, Hora, Saptamsya, Dashamsya, Dvadashamsya, Shodashamsya, Vimshamsya, D20, D24, D30, D27, D40, D45, D60, everything is there. So this is called Shodasya Varga based on 16 divisions. There is another Varga called Dasya Varga. It is based on only 10 charts. And there is another Varga called Sapta Varga. It is basically based on only 7 charts. And there is a fourth one called Shad Varga. What does Shad mean? 6. So Shad Varga has only 6 charts. And you can get this list from BPHS, Brihad Parasara Hora Shastram, or it is given in my book also. If you go to the chapter on divisional charts, at the end of the chapter I define these different Varga schemes. And the idea is, different Varga schemes are applicable in different cases. The Dasya Varga scheme is generally applicable to all human beings. In Manushya Jataka, which is the horoscopy of human beings, Dasya Varga is what is recommended by tradition. And in the case of royal horoscopy, Raja Jataka, Shodasya Varga is recommended. For example, if you look at the charts that are present in the Shodasya Varga and not present in the Dasya Varga, an example is D40, D45. These two charts are present in the 16 scheme, but not in the 10 scheme. Why? What does D45 show? It shows your paternal karma, the karma that you inherit from your ancestors on the paternal side. If your grandfather built 10 temples, you will be blessed because of that. Your grandfather went to a war and destroyed thousands of people unfairly. You will suffer because of that. So all these things are shown in D45. Similarly, D40 shows the karma that you inherit from the maternal side. So these two charts, of course, they are important for every person, but they are less important. When you look at how strong a planet is, Parasara gave something known as Vimshopakabala. See, if you go here, there is Vimshopakabala in the strengths. If you go to other strengths, in the middle, you have this Vimshopakabala. And you have the Bala given based on Dashavarga, Shodasyavarga, Saptavarga and Shadvarga. Based on all the 6 schemes, you are given the strength of planets. And what this particular Bala shows is, it looks at the strength in various divisions and gives a composite strength of how beneficial this planet is. From the point of view of everything, not just relations or marriage or career or something. From the point of view of overall life, how good is this planet? So when you see this strength,
is this computation linked to the numeric number in the Ashtaka?
No, this is a totally different thing. Ashtaka Varga, what that shows is, whatever activity a particular planet shows, whether it's getting cooperation from other planets. For example, Mercury shows learning ability, Moon shows mind, Jupiter shows wisdom, Saturn shows the ability to work hard. So when you see somebody's Saturn Is he getting cooperation from various other planets? From all the other references, is he good or bad? So there in Ashtakavarga, the idea is, you see how much cooperation various aspects within you, various planets are getting from other planets. So that is what you see in that particular thing. And here what you are seeing is, forgetting all other references. This has nothing to do with houses or references. This is based on exaltation, Mula Trikona, own sign, etc. So this Bala, it shows overall how happy the planet is with you. Not how happy other planets are with this planet. When you look at Saturn's Ashtakavarga Bala, what you are doing is, how happy are Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn and Lagna with Saturn. How happy they are and how well they cooperate with whatever Saturn wants to give you. It could be good or bad. If it is a bad thing, non-cooperation is good for you. If it is a good thing that Saturn wants to give, non-cooperation is bad for you. So that Bala shows what cooperation each planet is getting from other planets. And this Bala shows the overall tendency of the planet to do good or bad to you. So this is actually, Parashara gave a lot of importance to this Bala when he talks about Bala. And Shadbala is basically the relative strength of two planets, not from the point of view of whether they want to do good to you or bad to you, but the relative strength of two planets. When they are fighting, who wins? When they have a Rajyoga, who will give that Rajyoga? If, for example, I and my wife want to give a donation to a charity, who runs first and gives the check? That is what Shadbala shows. So Shadbala is useful in deciding which planet gives a Rajyoga. When there is a Rajyoga given by multiple planets, which planet will lead to the fructification of the Rajyoga is shown by Shadbala. And Ashtakavarga Bala shows how much cooperation each planet has from other planets. How much cooperation your learning ability has from your wisdom, from your working hard, ability to work hard, etc. So that is Ashtakavarga. And this Vimshopaka Bala is how beneficial the planet is for you. So if a planet has high Vimshopaka Bala, the planet's agenda has a higher chance of being fulfilled. That is how you should read it. So when you look at this Vimshopaka Bala, you should use the Dasavarga scheme for normal people. D40 and D45 are less important because those the karma that your parents or grandparents or grandparents did is so small that compared to the karma that you carried from past life, it is insignificant. In some cases it may be important. These are all gross rules. The strength given by Parashara are just for guidance. It doesn't mean that when I say that Dasavarga is applicable in Manushya Jataka, I don't mean that other 6 charts are useless. What I mean is they are less important basically. These charts are the most important. But if you see a terrible evil in a particular person's D45, a terrible evil combination, we will look at some examples of D45 in a future class because it's too advanced for now. But when you see a terrible combination, there is some curse in that family because something that somebody did, some father's ancestor did something really terrible, like maybe he cheated his guru and murdered him or something. If such a bad karma is done by somebody, up to 7 generations, there will be some suffering because of it. So when you see a really bad combination in D40 or D45, you should pay attention to it. For example, I know somebody in whose family all the marriages last very long time, a very short time. Whoever gets married, the marriage is broken off very immediately. Either before the marriage, the engagement is broken off, or in the marriage, some bad event happens and you have to postpone it, or after the marriage, wife passes away. Like that it happens in a particular family. So that is because there is a particular evil that is coming from the father's side. Somebody did something to the wife, something terrible. So because of that, that curse has basically, that curse is giving trouble to all the coming generations.
I have a family in India.
Yeah.
There were 5 brothers of them. They died within 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. So this relates to that.
Could be. I don't really know. And if you see all their charts, for example, they don't really talk about D45, but for those of you who speak Murari, who speak Telugu and saw the movie Murari, there was a movie called Murari in which somebody does something very bad to a temple, a deity in a temple, and his next few generations basically suffer. On a particular day, in a particular year, particular Jovian year, somebody in the family dies, and that goes on for a few generations. So that there is an astrologer who matches the charts of the old people who died and all the people in the family, and then finds that this guy has the same thing, and he is probably the guy who's going to die this year. And then finally how he overcomes that curse is the story. It's a nice movie. My kids love that movie. But they don't talk about D45, but assuming that there is an astrologer who's really capable of doing it, he must be using D45 there. Vimshatri is 120 years. So in case of nations, will the same thing repeat every thing? That's a very good question. The thing is, for human beings, the Paramayishi is 120 years, 120 years. That is why Vimshatri Dasha we are taking as 120 years. When you take Vajpayee government, for example, the Paramayishi was 5 years. So we compressed all the Dashas to 5 years and made readings. When you take an elephant, the elephant's Paramayishi is not 120. I don't remember how much it is. Does anybody remember elephant's Paramayishi? Do you remember? Okay. But they have, for me, something large. And for some animals it is like 20 years. For some animals it is like 20 years. Like that. For different animals, the Paramahishis are different. And some classics do talk about using Vimshatri Dasha for those animals by compressing the Dasha to the Paramahish.
But also in that case, Paramahish is one that
right. It may be moon or it may be somebody else. That is another aspect of it. But bottom line is the Dasha can be compressed to that particular period. For that we have clear sanction from the classics. Now the issue is when you are talking about India or when you are talking about US, when you are talking about Pakistan, why should it be 120 years? Why can't the Paramahish be 400 years or 360 years? That's a very valid question. But most of the astrologers, at least for India and Pakistan charts, to use 120 year based Vimshatri Dasha, but technically it is questionable. So your point is a very good point, and we can try to think about it, but we can't really come up with any theory because there is no basis for calculating the Paramahish of a nation. Yeah, that's tough. So yeah, so more than Dashas, what I would advise is actually whatever predictions I made about India, whatever came true, were based on the annual charts. You can look at the annual Tithi chart. There you don't have any question. Everything is on a solid technical basis. So today you are in a good form. You are raising really valid, very pertinent points. Very good points. So because people do it, I taught you, and it does seem to work. But again, we haven't timed even so precisely that we are convinced that this is working. So this is questionable. I don't want you to be biased at this work.
What about uncompressing Vimshatri Dasha so it's longer?
Yeah, but how much?
I know, but maybe you can have a very long period and then see all the different periods.
But what is that long period? Oh, what you're saying is use 120 years but repeat it. Is it what is
repeat it or actually make the 120
into something else?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But you don't know how much to make it to. Should I make it to 360 or 1000?
Probably for a division of the synodic cycle, like a recurring cycle.
Right. But we know. See, that's a good point. But the thing is, these recurring cycles, their impact on human being and dogs and countries, is it the same?
Different.
How is it different? And if it is different, how is their impact on countries working? We don't really have a perfect answer to that.
My research with the dasha shows that they derive from synodic cycles.
Okay.
And it's some sort of a progression with the rulerships going outward, and the dasha is derived from that. And so we should be able to create a specific novel dasha for a different country based upon rulers falling out with the birthday.
If you have any research, I would like to see the research.
Yeah, I've done research.
Okay, I would like to see the research, but my gut feeling is those synodic cycles may be applicable to human beings, and if you want to apply them to dogs, for example, dogs as a species, one dog may live 1 year, one dog may live 10 years. But dogs as a species have a particular Parmayush. So we are told to compress the Vinshotri Dasha to that period. So basically using the synodic cycles, you can derive the cycle for human beings, the length and also the ratios. For human beings you can derive it. But when it comes to deriving the combined length for dogs or horses, there is no clear guideline. Those synodic cycles may be working for human beings. So when you are talking about dogs, you may have to basically once you have the Parmayush, everything else falls in place. Using the cycles you can find the ratios. So for that, whether you should compress or uncompress the dashas for US and India to 240 years or 360 years or something else, maybe 381 years. I don't know what it is.
It's actually a monofluid, and you stretch the length to where it wants to go, and then you can vibrate the harmonics out of it.
Right, but how much do I want to go? I don't know that.
I know.
So that's the issue.
So in the past, the history that medicine, some countries have fallen or disappeared.
See, some research is done, but no convincing. USSR. Come on. Yeah. See, Sriram, people do research, but it's not really genuine research. It's all bogus kind of research, including whatever I have done, because we are talking about so few events. If you have many points, then you can't do artificial curve fitting. But when you are just trying to fit a few points, you can do artificial curve fitting. So there is research done, but it's not really convincing. But what I can say is, whenever I could confidently make predictions, it was either based on the Swearingen chart, based on Vajpayee's Swearingen chart, and the compressed Dasha to 5 years. Based on it, I could make good predictions, and based on the annual chart, I could make good predictions. But I never really tried to make predictions based on these dashas. So I will leave that experimentation up to you. But you can look at the annual chart, the annual Tithi chart, and see what's going on during the year. For example, let us take Pakistan. See, 2001, the year of big change. How is this year for Pakistan? It is a good year or bad year? 2001. The Hora Lord. Good question. Who is the ruler of the year? Mars is the Hora Lord. Mars is in Lagna. What does it mean? Is it a good year or bad year? Lagna Lord in Lagna. Mars. It's a good year. We'll talk about the negatives later. First positives. So this is a year of Mars. And where is Mars? In Lagna. So what is the main theme of the year? New beginning. Bold new beginning. Lagna means new beginning. Mars in Lagna means bold new beginning. And a military leader was thoroughly in control of the country during that year. Basically that Mars could show Pervez Musharraf. And he takes charge of the country and makes a new beginning. But is it a rosy year? Just because the Lagna Lord and the Hora Lord is in Lagna, we say that this is an auspicious year when auspicious new beginnings are made boldly. We say that is right. But is it a good year or bad year? So from the point of view of other combinations. The 8th house has... Pardon me? Yeah, Mars is 6th Lord also, yes. But still, for Scorpio Lagna, Mars in Lagna is very auspicious, no doubt about it. It shows determination, very determined new beginning. It's very auspicious. Yes, but he is Lagna Lord too. So it will not come smoothly, but it is good for you. It is not smooth. He will act as the 6th Lord also. But being in Lagna, he is bothered more about Lagna. He has two agendas, but he is placed in this house, so he takes care of that house first. Suppose I have one house in Grafton, and suppose I have one house in Florida. I don't, and I don't really want to, but suppose I do. When I am in Grafton, will I take care of my house in Grafton or Florida? I am bothered about my house in Florida also. But I am whatever actions I do are more concerned about my house in Grafton, where I live. So the same thing applies here. He is in Grafton, he is not in Florida. Florida is 6th house, So, but the thing is, look at the 8th house, because 8th house is a very important house in mundane charts. Even in normal charts it's important because it shows sudden changes. It shows changes. It shows sudden changes. It shows tension, unease in the country. So, you have moon in Maranakaraka Sthana there. Moon in the death inflicting station, Maranakaraka Sthana. Jupiter is there. And Rahu is afflicting moon and Jupiter. Luckily it's not too close with moon, but with Jupiter it's pretty close. So there is Guru Chandala Yoga. Jupiter is being destroyed. The 5th lord is being destroyed. 5th is emotions, abilities, etc. He is being destroyed in the 8th house. And Venus is also with them. And there is basically the demon, the teacher of demons and the teacher of gods. Both of them are together. And Rahu is there. So a lot of activity going on there. So this is a year of lot of pain, lot of unease, lot of trouble. At the same time, a bold new beginning. So you see both the factors playing out. And another thing is, I don't know if I mentioned earlier, I think I did, but the link between the natal chart and the annual chart should be seen by looking at where Lagna is from the natal Lagna. So if you see the natal Lagna, see which house this particular Lagna is. That shows what are the karmic influences being triggered during that year. So that will be basically, that will supplement whatever the Hora Lord is showing. And here natal Lagna was Aries, and this Lagna is, annual Lagna is 8th house summit. So again this year shows 8th house is if the Lagna, annual Lagna is in the 8th house from natal Lagna, it shows that year will be a year of pain, suffering, paying for your sins basically. On the other hand, if it is in the 9th house, it shows reaping the fruit, reaping the good things that you did. Whatever good things that you did in the earlier years or earlier life, you will reap the benefits of it during that year. So here, this is the 8th house, and 8th house has so many planets, has lot of bad yogas, but at the same time, this Mars being so strong and watching all these guys, he has an aspect, Grahadrishti on the 8th house. So he can, with the Grahadrishti being the year lord, the ruler of the year, when he has Drishti on some other planets, he can keep them under some check. Under attack. So Mars keeps all those guys under attack. So this is basically, you can look at this chart and conclude that this is a year of pain, but there's a lot of unease in the country, and especially moon is bad. Moon is the mood in the country, and moon is in the 8th house. Ashtama Chandra is terrible. Any planet 8 may be bad, but for moon particularly bad because it is Manakaraka Sthana for him. So the mood in the country will be death-like. The country, people will be depressed, people will be unhappy, angry, and there will be lot of tension, lot of confusion, because Jupiter is the wisdom and Rahu is eclipsing him. So wisdom may be blocked, and Venus and Rahu are together there. So the wisdom may be blocked by just diplomacy, get something done kind of attitude. So all those things are possible. So it's a terrible year from that point of view. But just the fact that Lagna and Hora Lord are so strong means that nothing, country will not break or anything, nothing untoward will happen. Amid lot of trouble, a nice new beginning will be made on a bold note. And that's exactly what happened to Pakistan. They were given a choice. Be with us and go against your own Taliban or face our wrath. And they made the good choice, and it was a very tough choice because there were terrorists everywhere. The Pakistani army supported Taliban. It was a very bold move for Musharraf. When he made that move, many people did not think he would be alive until today. He made a bold move, and that is exactly what is shown. Is there a Viparit Raj Yoga in the chart? Given by whom? Okay, there is no Viparit Raj Yoga. There isn't exactly any Viparit Raj Yoga in this chart. But if you are looking from a long-term perspective, see, during this year, still Pakistan was under pressure. Pardon me? Yes. Yeah. 12th Lord in the 8th alone is Viparit Raj Yoga. Our 12th Lord in the 8th with some other Dusthana Lord is Viparit Raj Yoga. But 12th Lord in the 8th with some other trine and quadrant planets is not really Viparit Raj Yoga. The software may be giving you Viparit Raj Yoga because it is very partial Viparit Raj Yoga. The software, if it finds a Dusthana Lord in a Dusthana or two Dusthana Lords together, it tells you there is Viparit Raj Yoga. But you have to take the yogas given by the software with a pinch of salt. You have to judge. Even if two Dusthana Lords are together, it may not be good in every house. If they are together in a Dusthana, it is good. If they are together in a trine, it may actually not be so good. So there are qualifications to be made that you have to make by yourself. So there isn't exactly a Viparit Raj Yoga during this year. And what the shows is, during this year there is no Raj Yoga. Pakistan is pushed to the corner and they say, okay, we'll do what you say, and then they start doing it. And Raj Yoga started in coming years because of what they did in this year. This year they went with US, they did what US wanted them to do. And in the coming couple of years, they arrested a few important guys, and US still did not believe them. They started putting more pressure, and there is even a theory that there are US operatives in Pakistan searching for these guys. But later, in the coming couple of years, Pakistan won the trust of US, and now there is Viparit Raj Yoga. Now they are getting the weapons that they want from US. Those, what are those called, F-16s? Those F-16s and other things they are getting. Now they are getting their due. But at that time, it was only a time of making compromises, going through the pain, and being bold and taking it boldly. That is what this year showed. You have to remember that when you are looking at annual charts, they show what is in store during that particular year. But my point was, compared to Dashas, you get much more clarity when you use annual charts. Simply because this is scientific. On the other hand, using Dashas with 120 years, whether it works or not, whether stalwarts think that it works or not, it's not really scientific. Let's face it, I taught you, but it's not really scientific. And we don't really know the scientific answer there. So, that may or may not work, but this does definitely work. And transits also should work, but we have to do some more research on transits. What is the importance of Lagna, what is the importance of Arudha Lagna, what is the importance of mood, etc. So with that, I will end for today. For tomorrow's class, for next week's class, next Sunday's class, try to look at, you send an email and then look at those events and try to explain them. Okay? What?
I won't come
You are lucky. You are lucky. You are lucky. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yes, ma'am.